everyone, I'm Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to be doing a design for you today featuring some Silky beads, which is a 2-hole diamond-shaped bead with a little ridge in the center, as well as 2-hole bars. The bracelet design is called the Eye of Horus, and it kind of looks like that Egyptian eye there when you turn it to the side. It's a fun design that you can do this vertical way, or you can do it horizontal and turn it on its side, kind of up to you. But it does feature the Silky beads and the 2-hole bars and some seed beads and crystals. If you need any of these materials, we'll do a little drop down on the left-hand side here with a list of links to the different materials so you can purchase from me online if you'd like. The Silkies that we're going to be using, you're going to want about 10 Silkies. That's for about a 7-inch wrist. If you do have a larger wrist, you may want to get a couple more. 1 tube from us will do you, and I'm using it in the Labrador full color, so that full silver color popping out right in the middle of that eye. In addition to my Silkies, the 2-hole bars that we'll be using, there's 2 different colors for each little component that we make here. And the nice thing is, even though this is a component project, you're able to go from one component to the next, stringing right along. The 2-hole bars, you will need 8 total per component. So if you want to do a pair of earrings, think about that ahead. And 1 tube of each will get you the bracelet done as well. You're looking at 4 of each color. I'm using the vintage copper color and then the Lila gold luster color as well. Approximately 40 of these in each color is what you're going to need if you're doing the 10 components like I'll be doing for my wrist size. In addition to that, we have some bling going on here with some of our new Potomac crystals. These are a little bit smaller than the other ones. They are 2 by 3 millimeter, and this is the light rose AB color that I'm using at the corners and at the side connection points of the project. There is a cut button sitting here, and the cut button is in the Topaz, the Topaz Picasso here. It goes really nicely. I kind of went back and forth with the vintage copper versus this one. It has that nice shimmer and shine on it that picks up some of the flecks of gold that are in my 2-hole bar. I'm going to be holding the whole thing together with some seed beads. For this project, I'll be using 15 O's, and these are Miyuki 15 O's in the Duracoat silver lined persimmon, and there's a bunch of the cool Duracoat silver lined colors. You actually only use a tiny little bit of those, so really any of those will do it. Get a color that you like in this kind of pinky orangey color, and you can use it for a lot of projects. To highlight the silver of the Silky, I'm going to be using the Crystal Labrador Full 11O seed bead, which is also a Miyuki bead, but is coated in the Czech Republic to match a lot of the Czech beads, which is awesome because then you have exact matches as you're working on your project. I'm stringing the project together with 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the white color or frost, and you're going to want about 6 to 8 feet of this beading thread. Nice to have your thread handy, and if you are using the beading thread, always great to have a thread zap. This is the thread zap 2. You can use the Ultra, you can use the wildfire cord cutter. They all pretty much do the same thing. That I'm going to use to cut my thread off my spool, as well as burn down some of the thread ends that may be sticking out. To then thread my needle, I like to have a needle nose or a flat nose pliers handy to press down on the end of that thread in order to get it nice and easily through my needle, which I'll be using a size 10 beading needle for this project. If you prefer, you can use a 12. Anything smaller will work, but a 10 is what I prefer. Especially with the bead shapes, I like the longer needle here of the 10 with just the Asian beading needle, that Pony brand of beading needle. I am working on a bead mat because my bead on it board is currently filled up with another project for you guys. So I'm working on a bead mat, or you can work on your bead on it board. You want a workable surface so that it makes it easier for you to pick up the beads and the beads don't slide around for you. To get started on this design, like I said, it is a component-based design, but we're able to continue through a little finagling with the design and trying it a couple different ways. I was able to figure out exactly how to connect it. So we're actually going to be starting with our exterior base rather than building from the interior out. We're going to be building from the exterior and building into the project. Go ahead and get 5 feet of beading thread onto your size 10 needle and lay out little piles of all of the beads that are used here in the beginning. And we're going to get ready to start making our Eye of Horus design. So with your 5 feet of beading thread on your needle, we're going to get ready to start the exterior design of our first component. I flipped the bracelet portion that I have finished over so that way you could see the actual design of the exterior row. We are going to be adding our button as well to this side, and then we'll do the loop on the other side. So this is a funky one where we're actually going to start by going through our button. I'm going to go through the back of the button and come out the top. When I come out the top, I'm going to get some of that silver color into the design by adding 3 of my silver 11-0s and going down the cup button on the other side. Now the thread will move around, so you just kind of want to hold it there in place. I'm leaving myself about a 2-inch tail that I'm holding on to just for a couple moments. I'm going to add 3 more 11-0 seed beads and then a crystal onto my thread. To get started now, I'm going to basically be starting at one of my crystals. This starting crystal is a starting bead. To start, I actually want to get a 15-0 in there before. And then my crystal. So that 15-0 that I just put on before the crystal. I'm then going to put on a 15-0 crystal Labrador bead and then go around this circle, adding my 2 hold bars right next to one another. The pattern is the crystal with a 15-0 on each side, then an 11 Labrador, and then your 2 hold bars. When you're picking up your 2 hold bars, you want to think of the project as the pink or that Lila gold luster as being in the center and the copper as being on the outside. You can do this in 2 different colors. You can do it in the same color. That's up to you. When you get your first beads on here, you're going to continue that pattern of the 11-0, the 15, the crystal, the 15, and the 11-0, separating out your 2 hold bars. Once you have those down next to the 2 hold bar, I'm going to pick up my next set of bars. When you look at this example here, you can see that the 2 hold bar in copper actually sits next to the copper, and the 2 hold bars in the Lila gold sit next to that one. So whichever bar is your second one in line that you added, that's going to be the first one that you pick up next. So I pick up those 2 bars, first the copper and then the Lila, add my middle design here with my crystals, my 15-0 and my 11-0, adding in again the 11, the 15, crystal, 15, 11. And then when I come back to my next set of bars, I know that the last bar I have on is my Lila gold, so I'm going to put that on first. Then my copper, and then repeat my pattern of my crystal in the middle of my seed beads. The last 2 whole bars that I'll add on, I'm going to add in here so that the copper is first, since I'm ending with a copper, because I want the copper beside the copper and the Lila gold beside the Lila gold. Adding those 2 bars and letting that drop down. To come back around and to kind of close this off here, I'm going to actually be adding and stringing through. We're going to add 1 11-0 right after the bars, and then I'm going to string through the 15, the crystal of the first ones that we put on. So stringing through the 15 in the crystal, basically on the opposite side, which is going to bring the whole thing into a loop. So you can see that loop there. The 2-holed bars are going to kind of hang out and bend back and forth from one another. Don't worry about that, because as we go around and add in our middle, they'll sit towards the center like they're supposed to. When you're coming out your crystal here, you want to add 3 more of the 11O seed beads in the silver color. Go up through the cup button. And you can see then that creates a little V for your cup button to sit inside. I'm going to reinforce this button because the bracelet we will start here at the beginning and then continue to get longer and longer. So I'm going to reinforce the cup button by going back through all those seed beads that I previously added, as well as the 11O seed beads that are here on the side. Coming down through those, I'm going to go back through the crystal, and only the crystal. Give a nice tight pull here. Back through those 3 seed beads on the opposite side of the cup button. Then when I'm up here, I'll get a chance to tie off that beginning thread. So take the first starting thread and your thread that you're working with right now and give a nice tight pull, getting rid of any additional thread that may be showing. I'm going to tie a square knot, the right over left and then left over right, or you can switch which hands you're holding your thread in. That will give you that same effect. Make sure none of the beads are caught up in the knot, and do a little knot there. My thread now here at the end, I'm going to take my thread burner and just burn through that thread. Then I'm going to go up through the cup button one more time, reinforcing it again, going through those seed beads. And this is with my long piece of thread that's connected to the needle. Back through those 3 seed beads there and down the other side. This is the only time here at the start that you'll have to worry about adding those extra beads. From now on, the pattern's going to be the same with the crystal and the 2-holed bars adding in. To get to the next position in my design here, I'm going to move that stop tail right there out of the way. So you can see here, we're going to go back through the crystal. And at the same time that you go back through the crystal, you want to go back through the 15O next to it, the 11O next to that, and back through both 2-holed bars through the same hole that we previously went through. So I'm coming out of my copper 2-holed bar now, and I'm going to take my thread from the side, on the side from the bottom hole to the top hole, which is going to reverse my thread direction and put it towards my cup button. You're going to see a little bit of thread exposed there on the edge. Don't worry about that because you won't see it by the time that we get our silkies in place. Now we get to create that nice kind of iris effect, that eye effect with our beads by adding in more 15Os and more 11Os. In between my Lila luster here, that Lila gold luster 2-holed bars, I'm going to add 15 11O seed beads. Or I'm sorry, 5 11O seed beads. I have 5 on here on my needle, and I'm going to sew through both the Lila and the vintage copper bar. That puts those 5 seed beads kind of almost right above my crystal. And again, I'm connecting to that second hole of the 2-hole bar. Between my vintage copper, the pattern is silver, 11, the peachy colored 15, and the silver 11. Turn the project a little bit and sew through the next grouping of the 2-hole bar, exiting out the Lila. Between the Lila, again, 5 11O seed beads go on. And sew through both 2-hole bars. Between the coppers, 11, 15, 11. Sew through that same copper 2-hole bar that we started, as well as the Lila 2-hole bar. It's going to be right next to the silver beads that went on first. You can see the top here is smaller than the bottom. We're pulling it in a little bit, and it's almost getting that iris or football shape. To really accomplish that, I'm going to be using my Silky to pull it in even more. The Silkies have a little bump on them. That actually runs perpendicular to the holes. So the holes don't run along the sides of it, they run basically along the top and the bottom. I want to position my Silky and make sure that my Silky bead is facing with the bump facing upward rather than facing down. So I'm going to hold it so that way the bump here is kind of in line with the football, and I'm going to string through one hole of my Silky bead. Once you're through that Silky bead here, I'm going straight across from the Lila Gold 2-hole bar there, adding my Silky, going straight across to the Lila Gold bar on the other side. I'm going to sew through those 2 bars. Then through the 11, the 15, the 11, and the 2-hole bars, all the way down through the other set of 11s, basically to get to the other side, so that way we can connect the second loop of the Silky bead. You can see I'm putting a full amount of tension on this here, making sure that Silky does get pulled in nice and tight. I want to be exiting one of my Lila Gold seed bead, or 2-hole bars, so I'm sewing the whole way across to the opposite side of the project till my needle and thread is coming out that Lila Gold luster bar. When it's coming out of there, you're going to grab your second hole of that same Silky bead and sew right across. Again, right across to the other Lila bead, and through both of those 2-hole bars, and give a nice tight pull. And you can see it pulls it in, and you really get kind of that irisy football shape. I'm going to reinforce a little bit by going back through the 15, the 2-hole bar, all the seed beads here on the initial starting side, back through the next set of 2-hole bars that are opposite the cut button. And I'm going to give a nice tight pull. That's going to make sure that you don't see lots of extra thread hanging out between on the sides of your Silkies. To start the next portion, I'm going to do a step down. We did a step up where we stepped up from the bottom hole to the top hole of the 2-hole bar. This time we're going to do a step down. I'm exiting the copper 2-hole bar on the top, and I'm going to go to the copper 2-hole bar at the bottom, through both bars, and I'm going to take the needle the whole way, exiting through the crystal. So it's through the 2-hole bar, the 11, the 15, and my crystal. Again, anytime you kind of back the thread stepping down or up, give a nice tight yank, and that's going to be our first little component for our Eye of Horus bracelet. To start my second component here, it's much like we did here at the start where I already have my crystal on. I'm going to add a 15-0, an 11-0, and then go in and add my 2-hole bars. Again, you're using 8 bars per component, 4 of each color of your bars. So I'm picking up the bars in order of the Lila, then the copper, adding my crystals with the seed beads on the side. And if you forget what order you need to put the bars in, you can pretty much look back to the previous component, and that'll give you a reminder. When I have the 2-hole bars on, to add the next grouping, I want to start with the color that I finished. So copper goes on, Lila Gold after that. Let that all drop down next to the component, and do another set of crystals. Adding in the 15, the 11, Once I've got the crystals on, it's time for my next set of my bars. Again, exiting with that Lila Gold Luster, starting with a Lila Gold Luster. Then my copper goes on, and my seed beads with the crystal in the middle. To add my last set of my bars on, I go ahead and start with a copper, since I ended with a copper, and then the Lila. And as I'm coming back to the center, I want to add an 11-0 and a 15-0 seed bead. That's going to position it perfectly to go back through that crystal on the edge of the previous eye. That starts my outer loop. And what I'm going to do is reinforce this whole outer loop. So just go ahead and string back through the whole entire project again, coming back out that crystal. So I'm stringing back through that last loop that I made, and I'm going to be exiting the crystal. So I'm exiting the crystal, and the reason we went back through and did another row of thread on that base row is to hold that football shape, kind of that iris shape, nice and firm. The more, with 2 pieces of thread, it's going to hold its shape and be tighter, a lot more so than just 1 piece of thread. Next, what we're going to do is connect the 2 hold bars at the top through their top hole with our seed beads. To do that, take your needle and thread through the 15-0, the 11-0, and both 2 hold bars right after the crystal. With the needle and thread exiting the bottom hole of the 2 hold bars, I want you to take the needle through the top hole, going in the opposite direction, which is going to expose a little bit of thread on the side of that copper 2 hold bar. When I'm exiting the Lila Gold again, that's when I do my 5 11-0 seed beads, sew through the top hole of the next set of the 2 hold bars, and then above the crystals, next and between the 2 vintage copper, the pattern is 111, 115, 111. Sew through the next set of those 2 hold bars. Again, I'm between the Lila. I'm going to add 5 of my 11-0 seed beads. Sew through that next set of 2 hold bars. And between the vintage copper above that crystal goes 11, 15, 11. I'm going to sew through the first set of 2 hold bars and exit. Once you're exiting those 2 hold bars, it's time to put in our Silky bead. Again, I want to make sure that the Silky is facing upward here, and that when you have the bump, that it's facing along the side of the bracelet. To do so, I'm going to kind of hold it in place rather than picking it up off my bead mat. Once I have it through the left hole of the Silky, I'm going to go back through the 2 hold bars on the opposite side, going through the Lila and then out the copper. Pull that in nice and tight. Then I need to get to the other side. So I'm going to go through the 11, 15, 11, the 2 hold bar, and all of my 11s right there on the side. Again, I want to be exiting one of the Lila bars. That's why I'm not going right in and adding it now. It's going to change the look a little bit. So you need to get your needle and thread over to the opposite side. So that way you are exiting one of the Lila bars. Exiting from there, now you get to sew through the second hole of your Silky bead. Then back through towards one of the corners, going through that Lila bead. Give a nice tight pull, and that gets that second eye in there. I'm going to go ahead and add more components. We're doing 8 more components, 10 total. And again, to add the component, you're just going to sew through the 11, the 15, the 11 here at the top, through those 2 hold bars, through the 11-0 seed beads, through the next set of 2-hole bars, and then when you're on the side of a copper, you're going to go from the top hole to the bottom hole, the whole way through, then coming out with your needle exiting one of the crystal rondelles in the base line that's going to be right across from your clasp here. So go ahead and add on 8 more components, and then I'll get ready to show you how we're going to add our loop for our cup button. Once you have your 10 components finished, you can see here, I'll put it on. You can see how it sits with a different kind of football shaped little iris beads there. So to finish off the Eye of Horus bracelet, you want to make a loop, and the loop is just going to go around our cup button here. To get that loop, we're going to be using our 11-0 seed beads. If you want to use your 15-0 seed beads, you could do that as well. It's up to you. So to do the loop, I'm coming out of my last crystal for my last little eye design there, and I'm going to add on my loop by adding on approximately 25 to 28 11-0 seed beads. I always use this opportunity to kind of clean up my bead map and get rid of some of the beads. If you wanted to put another crystal in there, again, you can kind of change up however you want that to look. You just want to make sure that your loop is big enough that your cup button or your clasp is going to sit right on it. If you do have a clasp that you wanted to add, a toggle clasp, lobster clasp, something in that fashion, I always suggest using some wire guards here at the end and stringing through those wire guards. You would use about 2 seed beads, then a wire guard, and 2 more seed beads. Reinforce that and attach your clasp to that. Once you have your loop made, so back through that crystal and out and reinforce that loop. Going back through all the beads. This is a good chance also, if you want to do a little bit of a peyote loop. If you're not sure how to do peyote, we have lots of other videos doing that as well. Going back through this loop, then we'll give a nice kind of reinforcement. And then I'll continue back the project a tiny bit. Going through the crystal, the 15-0, the 11-0, back into my last little iris or eye section there. Stringing back along the edge. And I'm going to tie off my project somewhere back here so it's kind of out of the way. My thread is white, so I'll pull it out right after that Lila gold luster bar because it's going to be concealed well. Go underneath the beads here to where there's thread linking from one bead to the other. Make a loop and then sew through that loop once, and I'll do it twice as well to get a nice knot. Pull that nice and tight between the beads, give it a little yank. If you want to, you can sew into your project further and knot back further along the project as well. I generally will do about 2 or 3, usually about 3 knots in different locations along my project. If you want to, you can also have some super new glue and glue down some of those knot areas. Do the same thing over here, making a loop and sewing through it once and then once again. You want to make sure those loops that you make do go in the appropriate place and that you don't see any thread jumping between beads or over beads. I'm just going to move mine over there so that way it's not between the 11 and the 15, it's between the 11 and the bar. Once you have your knots and everything finished up, you can take your thread burner, and I need to put a new battery in mine. You can tell when your thread burner battery is going because it takes a little bit longer to burn through the edges. I'm going to burn down the edge of that thread then, leaving about 1/8 of an inch. I can then tuck that thread end in between beads. You won't see it, but it balls it up nicely so that way it acts as a stop, so that way it doesn't go back through the project. Back to the starting position here. I'll go in and burn down that thread as well and tuck that right behind my cut button. If you do have to tie a knot close to the end, right behind the cut button, works out really well. You'll see it a little bit when it's off, but then when it's on, that is going to sit right underneath the seed beads from the other side. This Eye of Horus bracelet could easily be turned into a really pretty necklace. A couple different things can be added in here. Just get some nivettes in as well, some crystals. You could do some bicones. Two-hold objects will definitely sit better and get you better of a kind of cinch in on this. You could even put a round trio in the middle if you wanted to, going through the first and the second hole to really make it look like an eye versus the silky bead. So you can change up and use some different beads. But once you get that last loop on, burn down your thread ends, you are finished with your bracelet. Again, this is about 6 3/4, a little shy of 7. If you need to do one more component, you can do that. Just then know that you're going to need 11 silkies and 88 bars rather than the 80. So something to keep in mind. But this is a fun design that you can use, like I said, different things along the middle. And I really enjoyed making this because I love the look that it looks like separate components, but you don't have to tie off and actually add different components as you're going along. It makes great earrings as well that you can kind of hang those down. You could make earrings double-sided also and kind of do a pull-in on the other side as well. So have fun using this pattern and this design to kind of make it your own, be creative, and you could add drops to the ends here in order to make it a necklace, so really kind of play up and make that fun regal look for the necklace or the bracelet. If you do need any of the materials to do this Eye of Horus bracelet or necklace, you can go back to the beginning of the video where we have the little drop down list of the materials you can purchase from me online, or you can go to the details right underneath this video. There's a little detail box that shows what the video is about. Press on the little arrow below it. It'll show more details, which will give you links to all of these as well. If you do like this project as well as others, you like updates on the new cooperative beads like the Miyuki galvanized crystal Labrador fool, you can subscribe to this channel and you'll get regular updates from us when we do all of those different fun designs and videos and updates and just kind of what's going on videos as well. If you want to stay connected with us, you can visit us at PotomacBeads.com. You can shop there. You can check out some of the different patterns that we have there, as well as become a member of our Facebook group, which is Beading and Jewelry Making. Have a great time there interacting with other beaders, people that make jewelry in all different ways and all different fashions, not just seed beading, but wire working and all kinds of different details. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I look forward to seeing what you guys make with this design and how it inspires you and gets you guys ready to bead and to make some more jewelry. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone.